I never believed in monsters. Never. To me, werewolves, vampires, creatures of the night, they were just stories to scare children. Until that day. Until I met him.
Doctor, I am a werewolf.
At that moment, I should have laughed. I should have dismissed it as another delusion, another fantasy from a disturbed mind. But I didn't laugh, because there was something in his voice, something that made my blood run cold, something that made me question everything I believed in. In the sessions that followed, he told me everything. Visions of blood, dreams where he ran on all fours, howling at the moon. A feeling that his skin was stretching, tearing, as if something inside him wanted to break free. He described it all in such detail that, at times, I could almost smell the iron tang of blood, hear the echoes of howls in the forest. He seemed genuinely terrified, and I tried to stay rational. It was my job, after all. I diagnosed schizophrenia, personality disorder, maybe even trauma-induced psychosis. But deep down, something bothered me, something I couldn't explain. That's when the nightmares began. Dreams where I was chased by something I couldn't see. I'd wake up with my heart racing, the smell of damp earth and rotting leaves stuck in my nose. And worse, I started to feel a connection to him. I didn't know it at the time, but he was already infecting me. The curse, or whatever it was spreading. And I, in my arrogance, still believed I could explain it all with science.
Doctor, you're starting to understand, aren't you?
I needed answers. If he was insane, I needed to understand what had triggered this psychosis. If he wasn't, well, that was something I couldn't even begin to consider. But the symptoms didn't stop. Unexplained pains, as if my bones were shifting beneath my skin, an aggression I had never felt before, and the dreams only got worse. I tried to hold on to rationality. I was a man of science, after all. But how could I explain the pains that came and went, as if something inside me was rearranging itself? How could I explain the scratches I found on my body when I woke up, with no memory of how they got there? I didn't want to admit it, but something inside me was changing, something I couldn't control, and worse, something I couldn't understand.
You're feeling it, aren't you? The transformation.
I didn't want to believe it. I couldn't. But with each passing day, each night of nightmares, and each morning of unexplained scratches, it all brought me closer to a conclusion I feared more than anything. I was no longer myself. Or maybe I was finally becoming who I truly was.
You can't fight it, Doctor. It's stronger than you.
I didn't know where I was. I didn't know how I had gotten there. My clothes were torn. My body ached as if I had been crushed by a truck. And the blood. There was blood on my hands. Dry, dark, but undeniably blood. I tried to convince myself it was sleepwalking. A psychotic break, maybe. Anything but that. But deep down I knew. Something inside me was changing. Something I couldn't control. I didn't want to believe it, I couldn't. But the coincidences were too many. And with each passing night, I lost more time. I woke up in strange places, with marks on my body that I couldn't explain. And the worst part was the feeling. The feeling that I wasn't alone inside my own mind. I tried to convince myself it was all because of stress, lack of sleep, anything but that. But I knew I was lying to myself.
You're fighting it, Doctor, but it's no use. The more you resist, the more it hurts.
I didn't want to believe it. I couldn't. But with each passing day, each night of nightmares, and each morning of unexplained scratches, it all brought me closer to a conclusion I feared more than anything. I was no longer myself. Or maybe I was finally becoming who I truly was.
You can't fight it, Doctor. It's stronger than you.
I could no longer run. I could no longer deny it. The transformations, the dreams, the blood, it was all becoming impossible to ignore. And so that night, I decided to confront him. I decided to uncover the truth, no matter the cost.
Are you finally ready to hear the truth, Doctor?
He began to speak, and every word felt like a stab. He told me about the curse, about how it was passed from one person to another during the full moon, about how he had been infected years ago and how he was now trying to get rid of it by passing it to me. I didn't want to believe it. I couldn't. But the pieces were falling into place. The pain, the transformations, the dreams. It all made sense. And then he said something that froze me to the core.
You're almost fully transformed, Doctor. By the next full moon, there will be no turning back.
What if I don't want it? What if I fight it?
You can't fight what's already a part of you.
I knew I could no longer run. The full moon was approaching, and with it, the final transformation. I had two choices: accept my fate or try to fight it. And I decided to fight. I didn't know if it would work, but it was the only chance I had. If I could sedate myself, maybe I could avoid the transformation. Maybe I could stay in control. I didn't want to do it. I didn't want to turn into that thing. But I knew I had no choice. I didn't remember leaving the house. I didn't remember anything. But I knew what had happened. I had transformed. I wasn't in control. Something inside me had taken over. Something wild. Something monstrous.
You finally understand, don't you, Doctor? You're one of us now.
I killed him. And now the curse is mine. I remembered everything. Every detail. Every movement. Every howl. I had killed him. I had become the very thing I feared most. And now the curse was mine. I couldn't go back. I couldn't undo what I had done. The only thing left was to accept it. Accept that I was no longer the hunter. I was the monster. I knew what I had to do. The curse couldn't be broken, but it could be passed on. And I needed to find someone strong, enough to bear the burden, someone like me. Tell me about your dreams. I am no longer the hunter, I am the monster, and the cycle continues.
It was a night like any other for a group of friends seeking adventure. They arrived at the forbidden forest in an old car, laughing loudly and mocking the local legends. Werewolves, seriously? That's movie stuff, said Jonas, the most skeptical of the group. He was the type who never believed in horror stories, always ready with a joke to lighten the mood. Beside him were the group's confident leader, the jokester who never missed a chance to make fun, and the scared one, who was already eyeing the trees with suspicion. They chose an open spot to set up camp, ignoring the warnings of an elderly local who appeared out of nowhere. You shouldn't be here. The night shows no mercy, the old man said before disappearing into the darkness. As they pitched their tents, distant howls and the rustling of leaves began to echo through the forest. The group laughed, but fear started to creep in, subtle, like a shadow approaching without a sound. The howls grew closer, louder, more menacing. The friends tried to convince themselves it was just animals, but fear was already etched on their faces. The scared one was the first to suggest, "Let's leave, this doesn't feel safe." But the leader, ever stubborn, replied, "They're just wolves, relax." That's when the glowing eyes appeared in the darkness. Two bright points fixed on them, followed by more and more. Before they could react, a shadowy figure leaped from the darkness, scratching one of the friend's arms. He screamed in pain, and they all saw it clearly. It was a werewolf, thick fur, sharp claws, and teeth that gleamed under the moonlight. The group panicked. They ran into the forest, directionless, chased by the howls of the pack. Jonas tried to stay calm, shouting for everyone to stick together, but panic took over. In the chaos, the group got separated. Jonas looked back, and saw only 2 friends by his side. The rest had vanished into the darkness, swallowed by the forest and the howls that kept getting closer. The forest seemed to close in around them, every tree, every shadow, a threat. The werewolves were everywhere, using the darkness as their ally. Jonas tried to lead, keeping his voice steady. "We need to find a place to hide." But the situation was spiraling out of control. With every step, the howls grew closer, and the glowing eyes appeared among the trees like beacons of death. They found an abandoned cabin, almost hidden by the vegetation. "Here!" Jonas shouted, pushing open the cracked wooden door. They rushed inside, slamming the door shut behind them. For a moment, it seemed safe. But then, scratches began tearing at the wood, and the sound of growls filled the air. "They're here!" whispered the scared friend, trembling. The door gave way with a crash, and the werewolves burst in. The group tried to fight, but it was useless. One of the friends was dragged into the darkness, his screams echoing until they turned to silence. They ran outside, but the forest felt like a maze with no exit. The night was endless, and fear grew with every step. "We need to keep moving," Jonas said, trying to hold on to hope. But deep down, he knew there was no escape. The forest belonged to them now, and the werewolves wouldn't rest until everyone was caught. The remaining friend began to limp, clutching his arm where the werewolf had scratched him. "I'm feeling strange," he murmured, his voice shaky. Jonas looked at him and saw. His friend's eyes glowed unnaturally, and his breathing was heavy, as if he were fighting something inside. "Are you okay?" Jonas asked, but he already knew the answer. Before they could go on, the friend collapsed to the ground, screaming in pain. His bones began to break and reform, his skin covered in a thick layer of fur. Jonas watched in horror as his friend transformed into a werewolf. He tried to approach, but the wild look in his friend's eyes made him step back. "I can't help him," he thought, desperate. Now alone, Jonas ran through the forest, his heart pounding like a drum. He found a cave and hid inside, trying to steady his breathing. But the howls didn't stop. They were outside, waiting. He knew he couldn't stay there forever. Suddenly, the sounds stopped. A deadly silence filled the cave. He looked toward the entrance and saw the werewolves were there, forming a circle around the cave. The alpha stepped forward, its eyes locked on Jonas. It was time to face the inevitable. The alpha stopped just a few meters away, its eyes gleaming with an almost human intelligence. Then, something unexpected happened. The werewolf began to transform, its fur receding, its claws shrinking. In seconds, the old man who had warned them at the start of the night stood before him. "You don't understand, do you?" the old man said, his voice deep and weary. "We are the guardians of this forest. Those who enter here without permission become part of the cycle." Jonas looked around, seeing the werewolves surrounding him. They were the townsfolk, transformed, protecting their territory. "What do you want from me?" Jonas asked, his voice trembling. The old man extended his hand. "Join us, become a guardian, or die here like the others." Jonas hesitated, looking at the dark forest and the glowing eyes surrounding him. The choice was his, but time was running out. He looked at the old man, then at the werewolves around him. He knew there was no other choice. I accept," he said, his voice barely a whisper. The old man smiled, revealing sharp teeth, and took a step back. Before he could react, the alpha lunged, biting his neck with force. The pain was instant, like fire rushing through his veins. He fell to the ground, screaming as his body began to transform. Bones broke and reformed, his skin tore as thick fur sprouted, and his nails lengthened into sharp claws. The pain was unbearable, but deep down, he felt a strange connection to the forest, as if it were now a part of him. When the transformation was complete, he stood up, now a werewolf. He looked at the sky and howled, his voice echoing through the forest. The pack responded, howling with him. He was one of them now. Jonas looked toward the horizon, where the lights of the city glimmered in the distance. He knew he could never go back. The life he knew was over. Now he was part of the forest, a guardian, a werewolf. The pack gathered around him, and he howled again, his voice echoing under the light of the moon. A small, seemingly peaceful town hides an ancient secret. Every full moon, someone disappears without a trace. What appears to be a curse may, in fact, be a pact. Ashley, a courageous journalist, decides to investigate the mysteries behind these disappearances. What she uncovers goes far beyond her imagination. Get ready for a story full of twists, betrayals, and an ending that will leave you breathless. Ashley, an investigative journalist, arrived in town with one clear goal: to uncover the truth behind the disappearances. But what she didn't know was that this investigation would lead her to a secret as old as the town itself. The townsfolk are reluctant to talk. Some whisper about a curse, others about a pact. An older man with tired eyes mentions something that catches Ashley's attention: the curse of the full moon. But he refuses to say more. Ashley walks to the town's library, where she finds an old dusty document. The document mentions a pact between the town's founders and a pack of werewolves. An agreement made centuries ago. What did it mean? And why did no one want to talk about it? Ashley realizes the disappearances aren't random. They're tied to the full moon and the pact. Determined to expose the truth, she decides to dig deeper, even though she knows it could put her in danger. The more Ashley investigates, the more she realizes something is wrong. The people she knew and trusted began acting strangely. The police officer who helped her with information, the friendly shopkeeper, even a childhood friend she reconnected with in town, all of them seemed to be hiding something. Ashley discovers that the werewolves aren't just a legend. They're embedded in the town, living among the residents. People she knew and trusted were part of the pack. But who else was involved? And who could be her ally? The threats began to arrive. Anonymous messages, suspicious glances, and the constant feeling of being followed. Ashley knew she was close to the truth, but the danger was closer than ever. The tension grew with every step. Ashley knew the werewolves were trying to stop her from exposing the truth. She began to feel isolated, unsure of who to trust. Every sound, every movement was a potential threat. Ashley knew she couldn't stop. The truth needed to be revealed, no matter the cost. But in a town where even the shadows seemed to conspire against her, who could help her reach the end of this story? The full moon was approaching, and Ashley knew she didn't have much time. Every minute counted. She began to feel cornered, as if the walls of the town were closing in around her. The werewolves knew about her investigation, and they weren't going to let her escape. In the forest, Ashley found more clues about the pact. Marks on the trees, bones scattered on the ground, and an ancient symbol carved into a stone. But as she delved deeper into the investigation, she realized she wasn't alone. She was being hunted. The creatures she feared so much were now after her. Ashley knew that if she were caught, her fate would be the same as the other victims: to disappear without a trace. In the barn, Ashley discovered the shocking truth. The pact wasn't just a legend, it was real, and it involved people she knew. But as she read the names, something left her in shock. Someone very close to her was part of the pack. Ashley faced a dilemma. Continuing the investigation meant risking her life and confronting people she loved. But giving up meant perpetuating the cycle of violence and fear. What would she do? Ashley discovered the truth she didn't want to believe. Jake. Her boyfriend was part of the pack. He tried to explain, saying the pact was necessary to protect the town. "If the pact is broken, we'll all die," he said, his eyes gleaming with a mix of fear and determination. But Ashley couldn't accept that. She knew the pact was built on lies and blood. "What about the people who disappeared?" she asked, her voice trembling with anger. Jake didn't answer, but his silence confirmed his involvement. Ashley faced a moral dilemma: expose the truth and risk everyone's lives, or keep the secret and perpetuate the cycle of violence. She knew that, whatever her choice, nothing would ever be the same. Ashley knew there was no turning back. With the evidence in hand, she marched toward the heart of the forest, where the pack gathered. The full moon shone brightly, casting shadows that seemed to dance around her. She was ready to face whatever lay ahead. The pack surrounded her, their howls echoing through the forest. Ashley tried to expose the truth, showing the evidence, but she was betrayed by Jake, who handed her over to the werewolves. "I tried to protect you," he said, his voice filled with pain. But Ashley knew his protection came at a price: silence and compliance. The fight was fierce. Ashley used everything she had to survive, but the werewolves were fast and relentless. In a moment of desperation, she was knocked down, and one of the creatures moved in for the final blow. The bite changed everything. Ashley felt the venom spread through her body as the full moon shone above her. She knew her life would never be the same. Ashley had transformed. The bite made her part of the pack, but not as a victim. She emerged as something stronger, more powerful. The full moon was now her ally, and the pact, her inheritance. Ashley realized that sometimes to survive, we must become what we fear most. She took her place as the leader of the pack, perpetuating the pact. The truth she had wanted to expose was now part of her. Sometimes the line between hero and villain is thin, and for Ashley that line had disappeared.